The second criterion is often has trouble holding attention on tasks or activities. It's important to realize for people who don't have ADHD and for whom paying attention seems to be a fairly automatic process, that there's very little willpower involved in paying attention. So when someone's struggling to pay attention, telling them to try and pay attention is like telling them to try and be taller. It's really an automatic process that takes place in our brain. Its functioning is somewhat out of our control in terms of our willpower or effort. So try and pay attention is often a very frustrating statement for both the person saying it and the person hearing it. One of the things that people often will look at when examining whether someone has ADHD is whether they can pay attention for a long period of time, and you'll hear things like, well, Johnny seems to have no problem playing video games for 6 straight hours, so obviously he can pay attention if he really wants to. There's more to it than that. When we talk about difficulty sustaining attention, we're not talking about across all activities. We're particularly talking about activities that are not intrinsically interesting, and in the case of ADHD, highly intrinsically interesting. When we see Johnny playing video games for 6 straight hours, we're not seeing Johnny's ability to sustain his attention. We're seeing what's called hyperfocus, which is the inability to regulate attention. So when it comes to attention with the ADHD brain, the tap seems to be all the way on or all the way off, and there doesn't seem to be a big middle ground in between. A common complaint of people with ADHD or the people in their lives is that I often really I jump into things with both feet and I'm super excited about them, and then my interest dies out and I'm not interested anymore. And it's really frustrating. It can lead over time to a resistance to really trying anything new, because what's the point? I'm not going to finish it anyway. And again, that has very little to do with wanting to be interested in something. It's highly mediated by the level of dopamine in our brains, which is a chemical responsible for motivation. And as the ADHD brain has a low level of dopamine to begin with, we struggle to stay motivated.